On the brink of World War II, Antarctica was a largely unexplored territory with a lot of potential. With its large mineral deposits, it was seen as a repository of important resources. But for the Nazis, Antarctica was important for another reason. They were looking all over the world, fascinated with ancient legends and civilizations. Hitler believed that there was an ancient civilization where advanced technology could be found: the Aryan race. Hitler considered the Aryan race, to which all real Germans belonged, to be the race with the purest of blood. The Aryans were the most ideal men ever created, both physically and spiritually. In the late 1930s, the Nazis expressed a keen interest in Antarctica and sent an expedition to investigate a portion of it and claim it for Germany. The claim, however, was not continued, but it paved the way for a series of fantasies about hidden things that may be happening. The area they set out to acquire was known as New Schwabenland, or New Swabia, and the ship was named Schwabenland after the Swabia region of Bavaria. The men chosen for this mission were more so chosen for their polar knowledge than for their rank in the military, because the mission was primarily one of surveillance. A single Nazi official was assigned to ensure compliance with party rules, including the requirement that a listening party is present during Hitler's Christmas address. In 1946, Operation Highjump was launched by the United States as their most ambitious attempt to establish a presence in Antarctica and explore the frigid continent using naval and air assets. Before it, no US naval expedition had visited Antarctica in over a century. US Navy Secretary James Forrestal dispatched a naval task force to Antarctica organized by Rear Admiral Byrd, dubbed Operation Highjump. It deployed 4,700 troops, 13 ships, 33 aircraft, and a number of seaplanes to Antarctica. Operation Highjump's objectives, according to the US Navy reports, were to train personnel and test equipment in frigid conditions, and establish sovereignty in Antarctica. The latter was publicly denied by the US government before the expedition ended. That was the official report, but the facts suggest otherwise. They were reportedly looking for an enormous underground facility built by the Germans prior to, during, and soon after World War II. It was assumed that some of the technology in the underground facility was extraordinarily advanced for its day, leading some to believe that Hitler obtained his technology from somewhere else. According to certain theories, it was accomplished with the assistance of extraterrestrials. During their exploration in Antarctica, Admiral Byrd came across ice caverns which brought him face to face with a technologically advanced race. Theories about Nazi UFO technology are based on two premises. First, that Nazi Germany sent an expedition to New Swabia, which is now controlled by Norway. And second, that German science prior to and during World War II was fixated on finding an infinite energy source to enable perpetual motion machines, and with creating anti-gravity objects that could fly unrestrained. It may seem pretty crazy, but the Nazis were known for their strange reputation. They even attempted to make flying discs. German engineers had a reputation for developing types of machinery ahead of their time, and the thought of creating the world's first completely functional UFOs did not appear to intimidate them. But in the end, Nazi UFOs are no different than any other, cloaked in mystery and deception. However, one argument that can support this underground facility is the Nazis' support for the Antarctic Treaty. The agreement recognizes Antarctica as a research area and prohibits any kind of missile or bomb attack on the continent. Why would Nazi Germany sign this agreement? It's the Nazis we are talking about. According to the claims, they signed this agreement to prevent other countries from traveling to Antarctica and accidentally running into their facility and the research being conducted there. And it was not just the United States that was alarmed by the Germans' activities in Antarctica. The British established a vast network of top-secret stations in Antarctica in the 1930s. Especially noteworthy is Port Lockroy, which is frequently visited by Antarctic cruisers today as they travel to Antarctic Peninsula. These bases, most of which were abandoned after the war, were established to keep an eye on German activity in the area. Some did continue to operate and do so even today. The Russians uncovered a secret Nazi base on Alexandra Island in the Arctic, roughly 1,000 kilometers from the North Pole in 2016. Therefore, secret Nazi bases seem conceivable, but without the UFOs. The Germans call it Schatzgraber, or treasure hunter, and it was primarily used as a tactical meteorological station. When the scientists stationed there were poisoned by polar bear flesh and had to be rescued by a German U-boat in 1944, the base was abandoned. It was uncovered 72 years later, and over 500 objects, including a collection of well-preserved documents, were discovered. Operation Highjump was meant to last 6 to 8 months, but after 40 days, the base was evacuated and the task force left. What was the reason behind this? In the winter of 1947, Admiral Byrd reportedly flew a covert expedition across the freezing waters of the Arctic, and with his flight was a well-written diary that the Admiral used on every venture he took. It was full of details about the surprise he encountered that day. At 0910 hours, he wrote that both his magnetic and gyro compasses began to grate and wobble. The controls were slow to respond and were sluggish. After travelling 1,700 miles over land, he was compelled to return due to a fuel supply shortfall. As it is wintertime, he should have only seen the ice-covered ocean, or at most, partially open ocean. Instead, he was flying over what appeared to be forested mountains. He was flying across uncharted territory. He called it the Great Unknown, the iceless land area inside the polar concavities that leads to the Earth's hollow interior, and great it is indeed. Byrd saw a strange valley down below. For some odd reason, the valley Byrd saw was not covered in ice, as it should have been. It was just above 70 degrees Fahrenheit and was lush and green with mountains covered in dense trees and grass. A large animal was seen walking through the underbrush, which he claims to be a mammoth. This was a fantastic mystery in a realm of ice, snow, and practically perpetual deep freeze. He claimed to have seen a previously unknown land there, complete with forests and even prehistoric animals. Even more amazing, he came upon flying discs from a technologically advanced civilization concealed deep within the hollow earth. At 11:35 hours, Admiral Byrd heard the radio crackle and a voice speaking in English came through. There was a hint of slight Nordic and Germanic accent. The voice said, "Welcome, Admiral, to our domain. We shall land you in exactly 7 minutes. Relax, Admiral, you are in good hands." By that time, the engines of the plane had stopped running. The controls were useless, the aircraft was under some strange control and was now turning itself. At 11:40 hours, the voice over the radio says, "We begin the landing process now," and Admiral Byrd's plane begins to descend and land. At 11:45 hours, Admiral Byrd made a quick last entry into his journal that said, "Several men are approaching on foot towards our aircraft. They are tall with blonde hair. In the distance is a large, shimmering city pulsating with rainbow hues of colour. I do not know what is going to happen now, but I see no signs of weapons on those approaching. I hear now a voice ordering me by name to open the cargo door. I comply." They entered a city made of crystal material. Admiral Byrd and his radio man were welcomed and were boarded onto a small platform-like conveyance without wheels that transported them towards the crystal city. The master of the city then met and talked with Admiral Byrd. They took Admiral Byrd in because they wanted him to convey the message that humans are still too immature for atomic energy and are at risk of destroying themselves. If the rumours were true, what General Byrd saw could be what the Nazis found when they first got to Antarctica. Massive cities that were highly technological, not just on the surface, but deep underground. It was said that aside from the countries they fled to, the Nazis escaped to Antarctica with their underwater caverns and small cities. It was a time when numerous high-ranking members of the Nazi Party sought to flee from Germany as soon as World War II in Europe came to an end. Many Nazis were consequently transported out of Germany through friendly and neutral countries like Spain, Switzerland, Sweden, and even the Vatican. Most Nazis ended up in established German colonies in South America, most notably those run by the paramilitary regime in Argentina, Brazil, Ecuador, and Peru. Many elderly Argentines swear on their lives that the Reserve Bank of Argentina was so overflowing with looted goods and gold from Europe in 1945 that most of it was held in the street outside the bank and guarded around the clock until it could be relocated to a safer place. Ladislas Sabo, a Hungarian exile in Argentina, informed the journal La Critica in July 1945 that Base 211, also known as New Berlin, was an underground city that served as a base for high-ranking Nazis to flee to New Swabia, Antarctica. He claimed that before their escape to Argentina in a U-530 submarine, Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun had taken refuge there. This claim is supported by the report that a German ship visited an Argentinian outpost in Antarctica after the war. Other rumours were that the submarine U-977 later transported the corpses of Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun to Antarctica in the underground facility for DNA cloning. The theory was U-boats were transferred south at the end of the war, carrying everything including captured wealth from early military victories as well as confiscated Jewish valuables from occupied Europe. The remnants of some of Hitler's most valuable military equipment travelled further south to Antarctica and were held by governments. where bases beneath the ice would guarantee that these secrets remain shrouded in secrecy, Admiral Byrd was summoned to Washington, D.C. in 1947 and thoroughly questioned for hours about his claims of entering a hole in the Antarctic ice and discovering an advanced civilization. The US government was ordered not to mention the discovery or divulge it to the public. The mission was kept top secret, and everyone on the expedition was given direct orders not to talk about the mission anymore. Admiral Byrd complied until a few days before his death, where he gave his son his diary from that flight, giving light to what had happened. But as interesting as everything may be, Admiral Byrd's diary might not be true. What seems to be chilling true story paragraphs of the diary may be plagiarized sections of the 1937 film Lost Horizon. Additionally, no other concrete evidence supports the claim of Nazi secret bases. The official reports of the Nazis exploring Antarctica was to develop the German Fat Plan, which would allow Germany to increase the efficiency of its domestic consumption of butter, dairy, oils, and other fat-based items in the event that import sources were cut off during World War II. Whale oil was one of the key constituents of margarine at the time, which Germans ate a lot of. Because German whaling ships were operating far from home, the establishment of an Antarctic base seemed like a reasonable idea. An alien civilization in Antarctica or not, decades after stories of hidden Nazi bases and abandoned Antarctic colonies continue to circulate the internet and make for wonderful TV material.